So with that said, let's talk about a couple of things that Dave discussed on our Tuesday call because we're actually going to be going over how to prepare those kinds of proposals. Um, if you haven't seen Tuesday's call, definitely do give it a watch. It's an hour long, but there's a lot of really good nuggets in there that I think you're going to find very useful for different types of strategies with both realtor partners and borrowers. In order to get to our video archive, if you don't know how to get there, all you do is click on Help from within Edge. This is going to open up our knowledge base. And the top left link here is to access our coaching call archive. So this has all the calls we do on both Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we'll have April's call up here probably by the end of the day today, but I am going to actually send you all the link in our GoToMeeting chat real quick. That is the direct YouTube link that should appear in your chat in the GoToMeeting bar on the right side of your screen there. Feel free to copy that if you'd like to. Go ahead and click on it if you want so it opens up in another tab. That way you can have it open and ready to go whenever you want it. But with that said, a couple of things that they discussed on the call were things like a counteroffer analysis and a cross-qualification analysis. And David indicated that he wanted me to cover those for today. So I will be doing those. They also mentioned just a purchase comparison showing different down payment options. So we're going to show that as well. Now, to begin with, you're going to start in Edge. Now, if you've never been in the software before, if this is your first taste of Edge, I would encourage you, after we're done here at some point, you want to go into our coaching call archive and check out some of our videos here. There's actually, let me go back to the knowledge base itself. Right here on the home screen, this is where we have all our walkthrough videos. So if you're brand new to using this software, start with the walkthrough videos here. These are going to show you the different things like how to enter your settings, put in your photos and logos, all that kind of good stuff. But it's also going to drill down on how to read the total cost analysis. There's more videos in here for how to use the Edge mobile viewer, setting up your basics. And you can see we also have Mortgage Coach University, and those are daily calls that we host for the first 3 weeks of every month. There's a morning call, and that's our 101 course, so those are all the basics. And then there's an afternoon call, which is at 2 o'clock Pacific, and that would be our intermediate class. And if you wanted to see what the topics are here, you can actually search Mortgage Coach University in our knowledge base, and it'll pull up this article, or you can click on it like I just did from within the walkthrough videos, and you can see the content we cover for each day. Now that's going to start on this coming Monday, will be our 101 session, and then that'll continue on for 3 straight weeks until we finish it off, and then we'll run the same content again next month. So don't worry if you miss out on some of these, it's okay. You can always sign up for next month's courses and then just attend the ones that you'd like. All right, so let's get back into Edge. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to show just a basic payment comparison. So we're showing a couple of different payment options. And let me bring that up real quick. So in order to start any new borrower-facing presentation, and those are going to be your total cost analysis or a rent versus own, you're always going to start with new client. So I'm going to click on new client. And I'm going to make it a marketing report so I don't have to fill out things like the contact information. But certainly, if you're directing this straight at a borrower, you can keep it individual. Matter of fact, let's do that. So this is Joe Borrower, and I'm going to be doing a down payment comparison for him. So I'm going to use that as my friendly name. Now, the reason the friendly name is important is it helps you identify what this presentation is. So if I had made multiples for Joe Borrower, I'd be able to identify this in my home screen by the friendly name here. Now, if you're doing multiple presentations for different properties, maybe they've got a couple of different offers that you're comparing, certainly feel free to do that. You can always group them into one borrower here so that they all appear next to each other. So let's continue on here. I'm going to choose own because I don't want to show a refinance transaction. So just a quick tip here. If you were to choose rent, it's going to try and get you into a rent versus own. By choosing own, you have the option of either a purchase or a refinance. Doesn't really affect a whole lot except for it just won't gear you towards the rent versus own. So I'll keep it on own. Now, if you are working with a realtor partner, and that was specific to what Dave was talking about on Tuesday's call, you want to make sure and put your partner's email in here. So let's just do partner@partner.com. And the reason you'd want to put this in here is when you get to the end of the wizard in this presentation area, you're going to see that there's a checkbox to automatically have your partner notified when this comparison is viewed. Now, if you don't put a partner email in here, it won't know who to notify. So there won't be a checkbox for you to check. So just make sure to put your partner's email in here if you do want them to be notified with those same alerts that you get when your presentation is viewed. Next step is the goals. This is going to be a purchase transaction, so I'm going to choose purchase a new home. Now that's going to eliminate the need for any current mortgage questions. Now the only one I want to fill out on this screen is going to be my purchase price, and this is going to be the lower price. So if you're comparing multiple price options or multiple down payment options, you'd want to use the lowest price here so you can build forward on it. Now in this case, we're doing a down payment analysis, so we're just going to use the same price for all of them and show varying down payment levels. So let's say 400,000. Now, if you do want to be able to show your client's tax benefit, you would need to put their tax bracket right here. And that's certainly a very valuable thing to show. It will show the tax benefit they get off the mortgage interest, as well as the property taxes. And if you choose to make mortgage insurance a deductible item as well, it'll include that in the tax benefit too. Now, the other items here are kind of your pre-qual questions, but they also help you to determine things like DTI because we're asking for the debt here. So it'll show you what the debt to income ratios are, both the housing and the full DTI. If you do want to show what their current savings account is and what it's going to look like after the cash to close, you can certainly put their savings in here and put their current rate of return right here in this line. For today's discussion, I will just put in a tax bracket so I can show tax benefit. And then I'm going to continue forward. Now, the minimums and maximums that it's asking for right here, it's asking for these because this is geared towards the same conversation you're already having with your borrowers. So you've likely collected this information. But if you're doing this while the borrower is not in front of you, you're not using this to help determine what you're talking about on the phone, you can certainly skip this if you need to, or fill it in if you do know these figures. I'm going to skip it for today. And I'm going to go immediately into the products. Now I'm going to compare 3 different products for today's discussion, and they're just going to be 3 different down payment levels. So for this one, I'm going to just call it 20% down, and it's going to be a 30 fixed. And you can jump between typing in the down payment as a dollar amount or a percentage by clicking this percentage button. So I'll put in my 20%. And we'll put the rate that we can get them right now, and then of course the term. Now the term must be entered in months. If you ever find you're getting a really high P&I payment, you've probably entered this as years instead of months. So that's the first place I would check if you're looking at like a $15,000 payment on a $400,000 house. Now the next step is to arrow forward in the screen, and this is where we're going to enter our closing costs. Now there's 2 different ways you can do this. You can lump sum your costs here in these fields, and that's perfectly acceptable. Remember, this is all an estimate anyway, so make sure you have something in your disclaimer language that says this is an estimate. Now, the second method you can use is to use closing cost templates, and that's going to be a little bit more accurate. There's still going to be items that will probably be, still estimates, things like title fees. You may not have exact numbers on those. So again, I would always advise you put something in your disclaimer that says fees shown are estimates, and maybe different at time of close, something like that. Now, if you don't have any templates built, I would encourage all of you, make sure you've got at least a couple of templates built. And if you've never built one of the templates in here, it's actually very easy. All you have to do is pull out a fee worksheet from a recent loan that you've closed that has these same characteristics. So in this case, I would just pull my most recent 30-year fixed at 20%. And when I look at my fee worksheet, I'm just going to start adding fees until I've got all the fees that are listed on my sheet. Now, if you need to know which fees are APR and which ones aren't, if you go into our help menu here, and you can just type fees APR or something like that, and that'll bring up a search, and you can see there's an article right here, which fees should be included in the APR, and this gives you a breakdown on which fees should be, which fees shouldn't be, and there's 2 of them that are sometimes. Just kind of depends on what your institution does with those, and you may want to ask your compliance or lock desk on this to find out if they are indeed APR items for you. But once you've completed that list based on the fee worksheet that you created, all you do is hit Save as Template, and then give it a name. Name it as the type of program that you're offering, and then that template is going to be available for you from here on out in your dropdown right here. Now, for today's discussion, I'm going to say that I've already created at least 1 or 2 templates. I've got a purchase template, a refi template, probably got an FHA template, VA, USDA if you offer it. So those templates will be right here. And you can see I've got my conventional purchase 20% down. So I'll pull that in. You can see it pulled in my figures for me. I'd probably want to add a couple more that may not be included in here. This is just a sample. There's probably going to be 2 or 3 more fees that we're not seeing. But I will tell you, I'm not going to add the prepaid escrows here. And the reason I'm not is I'm going to allow Edge to do it in my final screen. So once I'm happy with the way the fees look, fill in something for owners and lenders title. Let's say 400 there, and maybe 600 there. Hit apply to loan, and you can see it actually grays out these fields with the items that are in your closing cost detail. So if you need to make changes to these figures, you'd have to go back into the detail and adjust your items, and then it'll recalculate these figures up here. Now points, this field is kind of independent of the closing costs in here. And the reason it is just in case you decide to finance in some of these closing costs, we want the points to be based on the total amount financed versus just being based on the base loan amount. So these points will work if you want to use them for discount points or origination points. It'll work either way. Then you want to put in your prepaid interest days, usually estimate 15 there. And then I'm not going to add those to the loan amount because I don't want to finance them in. I want my LTV to remain at 80%. Now, if I check this box, it would actually take this amount here, this 526, and add it to the loan amount. So we don't want to do that because we'll exceed that 80% guideline and it'll require MI. So definitely not worth doing. The final step is to put in your monthly costs. So put in your hazard insurance, your taxes. And if there was mortgage insurance, you'd want to put it in. In this case, I'm at 80%, so I don't need mortgage insurance. But remember I told you I'm not going to put in my prepaid escrows back in the closing cost detail because I wanted to do it in a different spot. Well, that's right here. This is where we can put in our reserve months, and those are going to be based on the figures that are up here. So hazard insurance reserves, let's say I need 3 months of those, and then maybe 2 months of tax reserves. And then I want to collect an annual premium for my hazard insurance. Once you do that, it automatically calculates what those are, and it pipes it back a screen into your prepaid escrows. So you can see if we go into our closing cost detail now, there are 3 new items that got entered based on the monthly multipliers that I put in. So I am done with the first product. So my second product is just going to be a different down payment. So I'm going to hit add another product. And I'm going to use the copy button. This is going to save you a lot of time, so definitely get used to using this copy button. And I'm going to copy that 20% down, 30 fixed. Now we'll rename this. Let's say that maybe this is a 10% down. All I'm going to do is change my percentage here. And if the rate was different based on that loan to value, you'd certainly want to use a different rate here. I'm going to assume it's the same on this one. Closing costs probably wouldn't be different on this one, so I'm just going to leave them as is. And then the one thing I do need to add for this one is going to be mortgage insurance. So I'm going to put in my factor, and you can check with your guidelines from your MI company to find out what factor you would use on this. I'll say this is probably about 0.5. And then because it's conventional, all I need is that 78% cutoff. So Edge automatically knows it's going to apply this 150 payment until their loan to value reaches 78%. Now this becomes a little bit different when you're looking at FHA loans because government loans actually, the mortgage insurance declines every month or every year based on the outstanding balance for the last 12 months. So for all government loans, you'd want to check this box right here and then make sure your MI cutoff months, this is the minimum number of months it has to run. Make sure that's set for the term. So on a 30-year FHA, you would set this at 360. So it runs for the life of the loan. Now I am going to choose to make MI tax deductible, and I will get that spelling error corrected there. And then I'm going to add an additional product. I'll use that copy from button again, and I'll copy my 10% down. And let's say this one's going to be a 5% down, 30 fixed. Change my down payment percentage. And then my MI factor is probably going to be a little bit higher, let's say 0.7. And then just for fun, let's go ahead and add an FHA product as well. So I will copy from that 5%. The name on this one will be 3.5% and FHA. Now, when you're doing an FHA, you want to make sure to select the type of premium that you need. So in this upfront premium dropdown, you're going to choose FHA. Then we're going to adjust our down payment percentage. And I can probably get a little bit lower rate for this than I can on the conventionals. Now, if there was any costs that were different on the FHA versus your conventional loans, you'd want to make sure and earmark those costs in here. And if that was the case, you'd go into the detail. And let's say, for instance, we're going to need a pest inspection fee. So I'll select that guy somehow. There we go. Let's say that's about $500. And then apply that to the loan. Now, because it's an FHA, we do need to account for our upfront mortgage insurance premium. And we're going to put that in as 1.75. Oops. And then we are going to finance that into the loan. So we want to check the box there so it increases the amount financed to cover the mortgage insurance premium. Now, when we get to our final screen, the mortgage insurance is going to be different from the conventionals. And at this high LTV, it's going to be 0.85 for our factor. The 78% really doesn't matter. We can actually get rid of it at this point. But we do need to make sure we have that CalcMI on balance checkbox done. And then this is a 30-year term, so it needs to run for the entire term. Now, if there was additional reserves you need to collect for this, you could collect a 12-month premium on the mortgage insurance or mortgage insurance reserves if you needed to. But let's check out what we've got. Now, when you look at the analysis summary, you can see obviously these are different degrees of down payment. So some will require more cash in than others will, but there's obviously a pretty big difference between the payments that are going to be shown. Now, when we look at our short-term savings, this is really comparing the interest, MI, and closing costs between each one of these products. And obviously the FHA is the highest cost there. Now, one thing to keep in mind on here is if you want to, you can actually show pain points rather than savings. So in this case, instead of showing a $562 savings on the 20% down, maybe I should show how much more it would cost to do the FHA. If I want to do that, I'm going to benchmark everything against this 20% instead of having it benchmark against the FHA. So I'll select that 20% as my monthly savings benchmark, and you see that now it's showing these ones will cost you this much more. So it just depends on how you want to have the conversation with your partners and borrowers. But you can do the same thing in this lower left area. And you can see what will it cost you over the 5-year period of time. It's going to cost you $26,000 more in interest and mortgage insurance than it would for these other options. Now that just is reiterated when we get to the long-term area. You can see the difference here, 162 versus 233 for interest in MI over a 15-year period of time. And these metrics can be adjusted, so you don't have to just show 5 years if you want. You can show, a 7-year period and see what that does. Maybe for your long-term, you want to see life of the loan. We can take a look at the differences between the life of the loan on these ones. The next step is going to put in your property address. And if you made this a marketing report, you wouldn't need to do this. It wouldn't show up on the presentation at all. And finally, we're going to choose the type of presentation, and we're going to edit our payment notes. So in this case, I always have my payment notes set like this, just so I can determine whether I'm showing just a P&I analysis or if I'm showing a pity payment analysis. In this case, I did include them. So I'm going to remove this part. And I'm actually going to put estimated right here. Now, there's going to be some new verbiage that's going to be coming out when the new loan estimate comes out. So keep an eye out in our compliance section over in the knowledge base here. This part right here, compliance and mortgage news. There's going to be an article that we'll publish that'll give you all the verbiage that you'll need for that payment notes area. But there's a a specific piece of verbiage you'll have to put on there that discusses getting a loan estimate for the actual details of the loan. So that's going to be coming soon. I'm sure you guys will hear that from your compliance department as well, but we'll provide you a method of doing that in here too. Now at this point, you have options to add additional notes about what each of these sections is showing. Now these notes show up behind the more info buttons on your final presentation, and you got quite a bit of room to add additional notes if you need to. You can do that for each one of the quadrants. And I'll give you guys a little blurb that I added to mine. You might want to add something like this to yours. This just gives a little bit better explanation of what that short-term savings is. So I'll chat that into our chat box here. Now our next step, we're going to continue forward in the wizard. We have options to add more verbiage on the long term. If you want, you can change the metrics that you're looking at, change the time periods, maybe even change to principal paid, whatever you'd like to do on this one. I like showing interest in MI paid because it really is the cost of the loan. And finally, we're on the last section, and this is where we determine how we're going to get this report to our borrower. So I would say 100% of the time, you want to choose email link. Don't choose print or PDF. If you need either of those options, do it from the live presentation. You're actually going to get a bit better print quality from it. I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment here. But check the box to notify you when the report is viewed. That way you'll get a notification both in your rate watch and via email to let you know this presentation has been viewed by your client. This is how long it was viewed for. Here's the link to the presentation if you want to review it. And because I put a partner email in that beginning field, I have a checkbox here to send an EdgeView alert to my partner as well. Of course, anytime you quote a rate, make sure to tie a date to it. So we'll put a date in that box. And finally, we're going to hit Generate Link. Now this is the link that you're going to send out to your borrowers. So you're going to copy this link, and keep in mind, Edge doesn't send any emails on your behalf. So you'll actually have to compose an email to your borrower and then paste this link in there. Now if you need ideas for scripting on those, we've got some scripts. Back in our knowledge base, there's one here called MC Scripts, and this is actually just a PDF of several different scripts and some video checklists that will help you when you're doing your video presentations. Definitely check these out. Feel free to copy, modify those, do whatever you need to do. If you need more ideas on scripting, certainly contact us over at support, and if you have a specific type of case, we can see if we can put something together for you. All right, so the last step here is anytime you put out a presentation, you definitely want to include a video. So while I've already generated the link, it just doesn't have a video yet. When you're in that Generate Link screen, this is where you can do the Add Audio Video. And you can see this opens up the presentation so that you can see it. All my buttons are showing. This is a good chance to also make sure that the data is showing what you expect it to show. Good idea too to drill into the more info sections because your borrower is going to be doing this, and just make sure you understand what's being shown here. Feel free to highlight anything if you want something to stand out. For instance, these last three options have MI, whereas the first one doesn't. So I'd probably highlight the MI so that they can see what that is. And then in the closing costs, if you wanted to highlight anything there, you could certainly feel free to do that. But do drill into these and just be aware of what your borrower can click on. That way, when you're talking during your video, you can say things like, click on the more info button in the top left quadrant, and you'll be able to see your payment breakdown, the closing costs, and the reinvestment strategy that I've recommended for you. Stuff like that. But you should be aware of everything that's on the report, even though you're not going to talk about all of it during your video. Now, once I've got all the highlights looking the way I want them to, maybe I want to highlight the cash to close for each option here because they are pretty significantly different. My next step is going to be to record a message. So I'm going to hit the record message down here at the lower left. And there's me. Hi, everybody. See if I can get you a little bit better view. There we go. So as you can see, it's just a simple webcam I've got sitting on top of my monitor. But a couple of tips on videos, if you haven't done any of these before, is a little bit nerve-wracking, the first one you do, but after a couple, it gets pretty easy. Just one thing to remember is you look the same on video as you do on person. So don't be afraid of how you look on the video. It's really the idea of making a connection with your borrower without having to be there in person. So a couple of tips on videos. Make sure to keep eye contact as long as you can. Try not to look away on the report, because then you're basically looking like this the whole time. Not really the best view. So if you keep eye contact, it's just going to personalize that presentation a little bit more for your borrower. Now, if you certainly don't want to memorize a script to talk to them. I would never recommend that. Instead, what I would recommend is get a yellow sticky pad, write down some bullet points of what you want to talk about during your presentation, and then stick it up right behind your camera. That way you're constantly looking at the camera, you've got reminders on what you want to discuss, and it looks very fluid. Now, in order to record, all you're going to do is hit this record button right here. Now, this can be used to both start and stop the recording. So, for instance, I'm starting the recording right now. Now, everything I'm doing is being captured through the video webcam. Now, important to note that this is not a screen capture recorder, so it's not going to record your mouse movements. So what I recommend, because you can use that record button to both start and stop, is you click on it one time to hit record, then just start talking away. Leave your mouse in the same spot, though. I even take my hand off my mouse when I'm recording. That way, when I'm done, all I'm going to do is go and click that left button again, and it's going to stop the recording without me having to look away. So just a quick tip there. Now, once you hit stop, that video is part of your presentation. So if I was to go back to where I generated my link, take this link now and copy it, and then just paste it into a new browser tab. This is as if your client was clicking on it. They're going to see your disclosure, and then as soon as they hit I understand, it's going to pop up your video. And then they can move that around. As a matter of fact, I'll go to play message again. They can move this around by dragging on your name. So you might want to tell them that during the video, because it makes it easier. Just right now, it's going to start off covering it up a little bit of the middle of the screen. So if they're unable to see certain pieces of information, you want to just tell them to left click and drag on your name, and they can move the video window around. They can also hit the X to close it, and then if they wanted to bring it back up, they could hit play message again. Dennis has a question real quick. He says, how do you erase a previous video? So the way to do it is you would go back into your add audio video screen on this particular record. You'd pull up your video recorder and simply hit the trash can. It says, are you sure you want to delete this message? You hit yes, it's a goner. So now if I was to go and paste that link in, it's going to open my presentation. I understand, but no video. Now, it's important to note that the video will still be on the mobile device unless you replace it. It doesn't erase from the mobile device. So what I would advise is if you know your borrower is viewing this on a mobile device and you want to get rid of the video, I would just record over it. So for instance, just thanks for viewing my presentation. Call me at 800-555-1212 if you have any questions. Just something innocuous like that so that it overwrites what was previously there, especially if you want to repurpose this report for somebody else. Rochelle has a question. Can I do my presentation using the video for the first part and just voiceover for the second part? You can. It's going to be a little choppy, but it's definitely doable. Let me show you how you would do that. And I'm getting a whole bunch of edge alerts right now for every time I open one of those. All right, so we'll go back to our recording window. We will bring up the recorder, and then you would start recording here. And then when you're done with the video segment, you would hit this little pause icon. Then you could change it to audio only, and then hit record again, and it'll continue recording. So let's see what that ends up looking like. All right, so if I hit play here, and then it would continue talking in the background right there. So it's doable. Probably want to play with it a couple of times to get the timing right on it. But I would say it's probably better off to just do an entire video, but I certainly understand the reasoning for wanting to just get off the presentation and just chat at them. So I get you. The other thing I would recommend is anytime you send one of these out, in your video, make sure to give them a solid call to action so that they get in touch with you so that you can further explain this presentation. Because they're not going to understand everything they're looking at. And that gives you the opportunity to use Edge Live. Now, Edge Live, if you've never seen it before, it's just a way for you to drive the presentation for your borrower. Let's see if I can show you what that looks like real quick here. And what I'm doing is I'm separating my screen into two screens. My screen as the originator is the one on the left here. The one on the right is what my borrower would be seeing on their computer if they click on my link. So I'll paste that link in there. This is the borrower's view of my presentation. He's hit I understand, he's watched my video, and he's looking at my presentation. Now, as the originator, if I've got this person on the phone and I know he's viewing my presentation, this is the perfect time for me to help drive the presentation. Now, in order to do that, you can go to Edge Live, or you can even do the Add Audio Video. Both of them are preview screens, so both of them will work in terms of highlighting things and popping things out. So for instance, if I'm having this conversation with my borrower, and let's go, there we go. I want to highlight additional things as I'm talking to him. I'm telling him, Mr. Borrower, as you can see, we've got several different options for you. We've got a 20% down option, which I've just highlighted for you. We've got our 10% down option. You should see that highlighting on the screen. We've got our 5% down. And each time you do this, it's going to update what the client is seeing on their screen. Now, they can't do any of this highlighting, only you can. So feel free to do this as you're talking. It's just going to help drive that presentation. Now, understand also that you can do things like pop out the more info sections on your side, and it'll pop out on their side. You can see it's coming into view right now. If you want to get rid of highlighting, simply hit the Clear All button down at the bottom. That's going to remove all the highlights on both sides of the presentation. Now, one thing I would encourage you, especially when you're doing a down payment comparison that includes FHA loans, most people don't know about that declining MI for government loans, so they think that they have this astronomical mortgage insurance payment, and I'll show you what that looks like here. They think they've got this 271 that's going to be 271 for the life of the loan. This is simply not the case, and this is your chance to educate the borrower on why FHA is not as scary as it used to be. When we look at the payment stream on an FHA loan, you can see that every 12 months that total payment is changing, and this is just principal, interest, and mortgage insurance. And you can see it's going down every 12 months. So we start at $20.90, and by the end of the loan, it's $18.26. That's about a $23 mortgage insurance payment by the end of the loan. So that's a great way to educate your borrower on, yes, you're going to carry MI on these conventional loans. It is going to drop at 78%. In fact, if you want to go into the reinvestment grid, you can see exactly when the mortgage insurance drops. MI cuts off just short of 7 years here, just short of 9 years. And then when we get to our FHA, it does carry for the life of the loan, but remember, it declines over time. All right. Manny's question, he says, I heard you guys are working on uploading a video feature. Is that still coming? Not an upload, because that's not going to be possible, but what we're working on is a mobile app that will allow you to record the video on your mobile device and append to your presentation. So that is coming. It's actually still in its infancy, but we hope to be able to get that out in the next couple of months here, maybe a little bit sooner. But we've got proof of concept going, and we're getting close. So definitely want to watch out for emails from us. We'll make sure everybody is notified as soon as that's available, because that'll be an app you definitely want to download. Rochelle's question regarding FHA, how would we reflect that we are paying all the upfront MIP? Good question. So there's a couple of ways to do that. Let's leave this page. Now, if you were going to be paying all the upfront MIP, what I would do is on the FHA loan, don't finance in this MIP to the loan amount. That way it's called for at close. And then what you'll do is, that it's $67.55, or you can use the 1.75%, but you're going to add a line item, and you can either add a contribution line item, or you can add a custom line item. So I'll show you both. Contribution is the easiest because you just hit C in the list, and then you go down and select contribution, and you can put in your 1.75%. and show that as lender paid. It'll automatically knock down the cash to close by that amount, effectively knocking out the mortgage insurance premium. Now, if you want to change the nomenclature here, if you don't want it to be called contribution, this one has logic tied into it that knows it's supposed to reduce the cash to close. But if you wanted to use a custom fee to do this, you would hit add custom fee and call it MIP paid by lender. And then that is going to go against APR fees, so I'm going to mark it as APR. But in this case, since it doesn't have the logic to know it needs to knock down the cash to close, what you're going to do is you're going to enter a negative amount. So negative 1.75. And that has the exact same effect as doing the contribution. So hopefully that helps. If you need any more on that, Rochelle, please do let me know. Christina's question, where's the reinvestment screen? Great question. So reinvestment screen is one of my favorites, and that's under your analysis tab. And what you do is you hit adjust reinvestment strategy. And this gives you a couple of different options on how you can reinvest. So if you want to do principal reduction payments, that's up at the top section here. Let's say maybe I wanted to, on this FHA product, since I've got more cash in hand, I want to put away maybe $200 a month back into the mortgage. I'm going to pay that off in 25 years. For this 5% down option, I've got a significant amount too. Maybe I'll put that in there. I'll recommend it for all these loans. Now, in those cases, you can see it does shorten both the freedom point and the MI cutoff because you're putting extra principal in, so you're getting to that loan to value threshold faster. Now, the middle section here is their current savings account. So if you had logged what they have in that affordability section on what their savings is and what their rate of return is, it would actually show you a savings balance. It would subtract the cash to close from that balance and give you an adjusted savings start after close. That's going to continue to grow, and you could earmark additional funds to go back into that savings account as well. Let's go to the affordability section real quick, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'll say that's growing at 0.5%. When I get back to my analysis screen and go to the adjust reinvestment strategy, you can see that it shows my start balance here, subtracts my cash to close. There's my new savings start. That's going to continue to grow at 5.5%, and at 15 years, they'll have about 13 grand in that account. Now, you can see that with these ones where I'm saving additional funds, I might want to recommend they put that 300 straight back in the bank. So now I've got 200 going into principal every month, 300 going into the bank, and that's going to net them over a 15-year period of time, $131,000, and that's at a really low savings rate. Now, alternatively, you can use the bottom area. This is for new investment vehicles. So independent of their current savings account, you want to recommend that they go with a CPA, financial planner partner that you have that has given you a really good portfolio. So let's say we're getting a 3% rate of return, and you're going to take that $300 and put it in there instead. Now that account will have amassed just short of $70,000 over the 15-year period of time, but you also have the money in their current savings account. Those two added together give the total accumulation of the 143 at 15-year point. Now the boxes on the bottom, what these are is they're saying, should I pay off the mortgage as soon as I have enough in this asset accumulation to do so? And if you check the box, you'll see that our freedom point is actually now 17.25 years. The mortgage will be paid off and the assets are going to keep accumulating. So I'll leave that unchecked for now, but if you want to dive a little bit deeper on this, because there are ways to customize your reinvestments, you can actually double click on these cells if you wanted to customize them. Say for instance, I wanted a lump sum payment at month 60. I can add month 60 and maybe they're expecting a 10 grand annuity or something to mature. And then I'll add a line item to bring it back to 200 again. Oops, that should be one more zero. There we go. So what this is telling me is that from months 1 through months 59, we're going to have a $200 payment going into that account. At month 60, it's going to be a $10,000 lump sum. At month 61, it's going to go back to 200 and stay there. It's going to continue doing 200 going forward. Now this is the principal reduction. So let's show you what this does. You can see that it actually reduced their freedom point even more. Now, when you do a custom like this, it is going to replace the monthly payment with the custom box here. But what that means is that on your borrower's report, they're going to see custom as well. And they'll have a button so they can actually see the schedule for those custom payments. All right. Dennis's question: How do we get the presentation sent to the client's phone now? So a couple of ways, Dennis. Most people do receive their emails on their phone, so a standard email would work just fine. They could click on it from within the email on their phone. If they don't have the Mortgage Coach Viewer app, it'll prompt them to download it, and then once they do, they'll be able to view your presentation. Now, alternatively, you can actually text the link to them as well. That works just as well. So, for instance, if you're just on your phone and you've got your borrower's information, you can hit the share button down here and that'll get you that link again. So without having to go back into Edge, if you have the presentation open, this is the link that you can text to your borrower, and same thing would happen. It would prompt them to download the app if they don't have it. If they do, it would just fire open the report for them. But those are the two biggest ways. Now you can also share these presentations across social media channels. So Facebook and Twitter, these are automatic postings for you. And you can see when you do that, it's going to ask you, where do you want to post it? On your own timeline, on friends, in a group, private message. And then it gives you some options to say something about it. You can replace the images if you want. But at that point, you can also choose who sees it and then hit share the link and it'll be shared on your page. Now, same thing for Twitter. It's just going to do a tweet for you, and it gives you the option to modify it before it goes out, so it won't actually send it on your behalf without you doing anything. So just keep that in mind. And alternatively, you can just copy and paste this link into a Facebook post. Let me show you what that looks like. So the what's on your mind part, or maybe you're doing it on your fan page, which is probably the better place to do it, but you can paste the link in and you can see it tries to resolve it. It'll use the Mortgage Coach Edge image, which you can choose to hide that or replace it if you want. So for instance, I just got rid of that. If I want to modify this, I can left click on it and I can basically write whatever I want here. And then you can choose your privacy options and hit post and it will be ready to go for you. Now, same thing if you're working on a business page. So this is our Mortgage Coach fan page. The same thing would happen if I wanted to post something here. I could just paste my link. It's going to give me the same options. You can upload a separate image if you want to instead of using the logo that's on there. But it gives you a little bit, a pretty easy way to give a good solid post that's going to reach a lot of people. All right. Let's see if there's any more questions before we move on. Kathleen's question: is there a way to review this presentation for those of us who joined late? Absolutely, Kathleen. What you would do is inside Edge, just click on Help, and that's going to take you over to our support center. And that looks like this. And then you're going to click on this top left option, Access Our Coaching Call Archive. I will have this call up here, and it's going to be under a new April category that we'll have at the top. But you'll see this call as well as Tuesday's call by the end of the day today. I'll try and get it a little bit sooner if I can. It takes a little bit of time to convert the video and get it posted. But I would anticipate 2 hours after the call, I should have at least today's call up here in the archive. All right, so that looks like it takes care of the questions. We got about 17 minutes left, so I want to cover one of the topics that Dave covered on Tuesday, and that's going to be this counter offer analysis that Sam Hansen was talking about, and actually Danny Hirani was talking about. And this is really meant to be aimed at a realtor partner. So what you're trying to do with a counter offer analysis is you're trying to address a pain point that the realtor has. So, for instance, the borrower has gone to the realtor and says, I offered at such and such amount, and the seller counter offered, and it's much higher. And I've got, as the borrower, I'm feeling a little spiteful about them asking me to pay more about it. But in reality, what we're presenting to both our realtors and borrowers is that, look, it's going to cost you a little bit more if you wait or choose a house that's not as good for you. So sometimes accepting that counteroffer is actually more cost effective than trying to haggle them down on the price, and in doing so, watching the rate go up over time. So I'll show you how to design that, and it's actually kind of it's a derivative of a cost of waiting presentation. So if you've ever seen the cost of waiting, it's just showing what does your loan look like right now if you were to purchase this home? What would it look like if you waited for a price drop and rates went up? What would it look like if you waited too long and the price went up and the rates went up. You can do all kinds of different types of comparisons there, but it's all about getting the borrower off the fence. And when we're talking about the counteroffer analysis, this is delivered to your realtor partner so that they can present it to their borrowers as, look, there may be, if we can get this offer accepted, great. But there may be something to accepting this counteroffer versus waiting longer, watching the price go up, watching the rate go up, or a combination of the two. So let's show you how to put that together real quick here. So I'm going to do a new client again. I'll make this one a marketing report. And we'll call this counteroffer analysis. And by the way, that link that I chatted to you earlier, I'm going to chat it to you one more time. This is the link to the call on Tuesday that I'm referring to throughout today's call. And what this is the counteroffer analysis. It shows the cross-qualification analysis, a couple of other goodies that they talked about, but definitely worth checking this one out. But for today, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that counteroffer analysis. Manny's question, how do I access Dave's recording and how do I sign up for the live webinar? I did not get the invite. Great question. So by the end of the day, I will have Dave's call up here in our coaching call archive. You can also register for the Tuesday calls by clicking here. And you'll receive reminders, I want to say it's a couple of days before the call and then the day of the call. We try not to send you too many reminders. I know you're getting a lot of stuff from GoToMeeting already. So we keep it at a few days before and then day of, just so you're aware of what's going on. Also, when you register, I'll show you what it looks like. When you register, you'll be able to enter your information here. You'll hit register, and then it'll pop up a screen that allows you to download an Outlook calendar file. And you can actually just hit a little drop down, choose the Outlook calendar file, and then it'll download it for you to your desktop. And when you double click on it, it'll automatically add that entry to your calendar. So if for some reason that ICS file doesn't work, that's the calendar file. Some people run into trouble with it. I see it a lot. If it doesn't work, you can simply create a recurring appointment on your calendar. The link that it's going to give you to join these calls is never going to change. It's always going to be the same for every Tuesday call, and then you'll have a different link like you do for today's call that never changes for the Thursday calls. And then I also just pasted that Tuesday call into the chat for you, Manny. If you want to click on that to open it up in a separate browser, just so you have it on screen after the call's done here, that will allow you to watch Dave's call from Tuesday. All right, so let's get into our counteroffer analysis. So same thing, I'm going to put my partner information in there. Well, I hope there's nobody that actually gets this email. They've been getting tons of emails from me. Friendly name, I don't really need a friendly name on this one because I've made it a marketing report and my headline is pretty self-explanatory. So I will leave the friendly name off of this one. This is going to be a purchase, so I'll select the purchase goal. Now for the initial purchase price, we're going to use what the borrower's initial offer was. So let's say $275. I'm going to leave all this good stuff empty for right now, but certainly you could fill in things like tax bracket if you want to show the benefit, or if you wanted to show some kind of a reinvestment strategy, you could do the savings balance if you wanted to. I'm going to leave it blank for this one though. And then we'll get over into products. And I'll call this one offer one. So let's say that the client was doing a 20% down and they could get 4% on a 360 term. And then we'll just apply a fee template. Pop in our monthly costs. And I've got my first product done. Now the second product is the counteroffer from the seller. And I'm going to use that copy button so I don't have to redo all my work from the offer one. I'm just going to raise the purchase price. Maybe they countered at $290. Now you can still get that same rate. It's obviously going to cost you a little bit more, Mr. Borrower. You can see these payments against each other. It can cost you an extra $80. But the idea here, and what Danny was really talking about on the call, is that the borrower may not realize, he may be feeling sensitive because he's been countered at with a higher price that he was not set to accept. What he doesn't realize, though, is that the payment difference really isn't that much for this counteroffer. And the payment difference for waiting or perhaps pursuing a different property, or rates going up, something like that, could be more costly than just accepting this counteroffer. Now, this is obviously a great strategy to present to your realtor partners, because the realtor partner, he wants them to accept that counteroffer. Absolutely, pay more for the house, I get a better commission. So this is something that's going to really appeal to those realtor partners. Now, I don't need to do anything else here because all I did was change the purchase price on this one, and I'm going to add another product. So the third product is, okay, you know what? I'm not accepting the counteroffer from the seller. Instead, I'm just going to wait, or I'm going to offer on a different house. And so this one, I'll copy it and copy offer one. And I'll keep it at that 275 point, because that's what I want to pay. I'm the borrower that says 275 is my absolute max. I don't care what the rates or payments are. This is what I want to spend. So this will be alternate offer. You can call it whatever you'd like. Maybe it's offer for a new house or something like that. But in the same period of time, they're waiting to do this. And you see how volatile rates can be. I mean, if you've got your RateWatch mobile installed on your phone, you're seeing it all day long, how it jumps around. And that affects pricing pretty significantly. So it could be, in the morning, it might be 4%. In the afternoon, it could be 4 1/8. I mean, we saw it 2 weeks ago. We saw it move a quarter. So just keep that in mind. And it's something you definitely want to make sure to educate your realtor partners and your borrowers about, is that rates are not static. I mean, they're constantly moving. So the cost of waiting or counter offering for a different property, going and searching out another property, making an offer on that one, the cost of waiting there could be, it could be 1/4%. So what I'll do is I'll put this one a little bit higher, 4.25. I'll leave all the rest of it, and then I'm going to add one more product. And product 4, I'm going to copy offer 1. This is going to be what happens if you waited, and just the general buying market, when you come into the buying season, it's going to increase the cost of the house anyway. So we're going to end up at that $300,000 point, or 290 anyway. Maybe I'll put it up at 300. And in doing so and waiting, rates can go up. Actually, let's modify the rate on that alt offer so it's the same. All right. So now let's take a look at what this gives us on the output. If we look at our analysis here, you can see that we've got varying degrees of savings against this final product, which is, I should have probably named it, which is wait. I'll just call it wait. So offer 1, obviously your current offer, yes, you're going to get the greatest monthly savings off of that. But let's take a look at what we do if we benchmark it against the others. What are the pain points that could happen if you don't accept the counteroffer from the seller? Now, it does cost you $77 more to accept the counteroffer from the seller, but you get your home right now and you're getting the house you want. Now, the alternative offer, remember, that's, we're not going to accept the counteroffer from the seller. Instead, we're going to go and shop out a new house. We're going to make an offer at the price we want to a different seller. In that time, rates went up. So for the same price house that you were looking at, it's now costing you $48 more because you waited. Now, this one, which is just wait for the buying market to improve and housing prices go up, this one obviously is going to cost you the most. So right now, maybe that house is worth $275, but give it a couple of months, get into the summer when it's buying season, you're going to see that house go for $290 or $300 anyway. So just something to keep in mind. This is just how to address a pain point for your realtor. And, I'm not doing justice to the way Danny explained it on the call. So I would highly encourage you to watch the call so you can see how he discusses this and how he positions this with his realtor partners. It'll give you some great strategies and even scripting that you can use to talk to your realtor partners about this. But with that said, the next things you would do is just simply get to the end, make sure to modify your payment notes, and go through the same process we did before. Add a quote date, Send a view alert to your partner if you want them to view that, and certainly in this case I would. Generate the link. Add audio video. Record your message and give a brief description about what you're talking about here. Make sure you've got a solid call to action at the end. Don't ask a question at the end. I see that a lot coming across my desk, and I'll tell you, if you leave something open-ended as a question on the end of the video, you're not doing justice to the call to action. The borrower doesn't feel like they need to contact you. It's a question now, so they have the choice of whether they want to answer it or not. So instead of ending it with a question, make it a statement. Make it something like, I know you're going to have questions when you're done reviewing this presentation. Call me as soon as you're ready so we can make sure you have all the education necessary to make the best home buying decision possible. Something simple like that, but make it a directive. Don't make it a question. But with that said, I'm not seeing any more questions in the box, so we've got a couple more minutes here. If you guys want to see anything else right now, or if you have any additional questions, go ahead and type them in, and we'll make sure to get those addressed for you. And let's see, what else can we take a look at right now? Don't see any more questions in here. So I guess let's dive a little deeper on that reinvestment grid, just real quick, because I do want to show you a couple of options that you can use on that. Now, one thing that's really cool about the reinvestment is you do have 3 different options for what to do, but when you use all 3 of them, they actually go in conjunction with each other. So for instance, if I decided to apply $100 a month to principal, I'm going to pay this off in 25.67 years. But on a refinance strategy, for instance, what if you're saving them $300-400? You want to account for that savings somewhere. Maybe some of it's going into principal, the rest of it's going into a money market account or something with a better rate of return. These two actually work in conjunction. So this $100, it's forcing the freedom point down to 25.67 years. But if we choose to use this as well to pay off the loan, we choose to pay it off at the accumulation point, look what happens. Our freedom point went down to 18.83 years. So both of these are working in conjunction to get that freedom point shorter, and certainly to build a nest egg of liquidity while they're waiting for that part to go. Mark's question, how did you make the negative box analysis at the top right? Great question, Mark. So those are done by adjusting the benchmarks. So by default, Edge will always choose the highest cost program as the benchmark of comparison. Now that means it's going to always have an empty graph somewhere. The empty graph is always the highest cost. These savings are relative to this particular option here. If I want to make some options negative, I would just simply change my benchmark against the one with the highest savings. So I would choose offer 1 as the benchmark, and now everything else is showing negative savings relative to that offer. Now the same thing can be done down in the short-term area. So for instance, I would go into this guy right here, choose offer 1, and now this is how much more it's going to cost you from all these different options. Now the bottom right quadrant it's not the same kind of comparison. There's no benchmark like you have in these 2 quadrants. Rather, these are just showing totals. So you'll never see you'll never see an empty one here. If you do, there's actually something wrong on your presentation. So I will show you one case, and this is actually a good chance to show you something. I'll show you one case where you would actually see a missing graph. So if you look at this here, remember we had a red graph right here, but it's gone now. The reason is I've named 2 of these with the exact same name. So when our graphics calculator tries to pull this open for you, it thinks they're both the same thing because they've got the exact same name. So it piles the graphics on top of each other. And if we were to go to the output presentation, there we go. So now you can see it does, we're missing a column right here. We're missing a column right here. This is obviously wrong. There's something wrong. I've got 2 numbers in the same one. The reason, like I said, is I've got 2 of them with the same name. And I see this all the time, 30-year fixed, using it for all 4 of the options. If they're exactly the same, the graphs are going to pile on each other. The easy way to fix it is just make sure they're all unique in some fashion. So I would go back to one of these guys, and maybe I could even add a hyphen. That's enough to break them apart. And you can see it broke them apart for right here. And if we go to our analysis, and this is not the right one, that's the one. So we're going to see the analysis break them apart. There we go, perfect timing. So it moved my graphs back. So if you ever notice that graphs are sitting on top of each other, check your product names. You've probably got two that are exactly the same. All right. So with that said, it is about top of the hour here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the call for now. I did record this, and it will be available by clicking help and then going into the coaching call archive. I'll try and get it up there for you within the next couple hours here. But certainly feel free to reach out to support@mortgagecoach.com if you have any questions on any of this, or if you'd just like one of your presentations reviewed. Definitely send us a note anytime. Our people are always happy to help. And while we don't have an incoming phone line, we'll get back to you within 15 minutes via email with either a solution or questions so that we can get a solution or even schedule an appointment with you. So again, thank you very much, everybody. I do appreciate you coming to today's event, and do come by every Thursday and stop by on our Tuesdays for the sales calls as well. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.